Welcome back, and today we are talking about the African Union Summit. Our distinguished guests are Emira Woods, an Associate Fellow at the Institute for Policy Studies, and Nii Akuetteh, Executive Director at the African Immigrant Caucus. Again, Emira and Nii, of course, it's always a pleasure to have the opportunity to host you on Straight Talk Africa.
It is our pleasure.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Well, what about the other issue that was also very prominent at the summit? We're talking about the elephant in the room, which pretty much reflects the issue of the abuse of human rights on the continent. We're talking about the International Criminal Court.
Yes.
You had Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta and some of his colleagues calling upon their basically colleagues
Yes.
to withdraw
Yes.
from the ICC.
I think.
Is it a good thing for Africa to withdraw, and yet a lot of the member states actually of the ICC are from Africa, about a third? And the last time I checked, nobody put an AK-47, frankly, on them. I thought they meant well. What happened?
I think, in fact, this is a very important issue. I think in that situation, the consensus of the leaders in the African Union was wrong when they allowed themselves to be persuaded by the likes of the leaders of Kenya and Rwanda and others. And I think Rwanda stands out for me, yes, because they actually supported sending a warlord to the ICC, and then having realized that they might come to heads of state. Then they turn around and make what I think is one of the most bogus arguments I've ever heard. The idea that the ICC, because it has tried Africans so far, is anti-African. I actually look at it the other way. This is an international body that is actually saying, just because you are a head of state, you cannot kill poor Africans. I think nothing.
Not above the law.
We are not above the law.
Right.
A poor African being killed by a head of state, we will still try and hold you accountable. Now, of course, it would have been great if the African Union had set up a body that can do this. But as a fallback position, I'm all for the ICC. I know that international representatives of civil society, including some brilliant African law professors on this side of the ocean, argued that the Africans leaders are wrong. So they were being very self-serving, and I think their argument is very, very wrong. And it reminded me when we were talking earlier about what things we can expect from these leaders, is to realize that they are very self-serving. They are in a club of leaders, and therefore I'm so glad about the last point Emira made about civil society, which I've been struggling to make. We cannot leave everything to the leaders. Civil society actually is doing its work, and it must ratchet it up and force them to do certain things, because left to themselves, they will not do it.
I think, in fairness to African leaders, we should point out the fact that a majority, if not all the cases so far at The Hague, the ICC, are basically from Africa.
Yes.
But we can also say that majority of those cases were in fact voluntarily taken there by African governments. So when you have a problem with somebody who is of presidential pedigree, why does it suddenly become a problem? Who is really Africa? Is Africa an African president? Or is Africa one of the more than 1 billion human beings on the continent?
So, Shaka, clearly the International Criminal Court should be, as its first word indicates, international, right? So it took some time, and it's international pressure, including pressure from the global south, both civil society and governments, to create the International Criminal Court. So clearly, we're creating an institution for the 21st century and beyond. It is flawed. It should not only be focused on Africa. It is an international criminal court. It must bring accountability to regions all over the world.
Look at Syria, for example.
Exactly.
Look
there
at
should
Iraq.
be, whether it's the United States under Bush, or you could name any number of countries. Yeah. Israel and Palestine comes to mind as well. There are a number of countries that are violating international law, that are violating human dignity. And it should, as an international criminal court, hold everyone accountable, without a doubt. So I think the concerns are actually valid. It should not only be Africa. But that doesn't mean, as you said, what is it, that you throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? You perfect the mechanism of international accountability. You make sure that it is international and not solely focused on one region of the world, that it brings accountability, that no one on this planet is above the law if they are undermining fundamental rights of their people or others on this planet. So I think it is incumbent upon us to say, yes, the concerns are valid, but let's take those concerns and direct them at changes within the international mechanism so that an international criminal court serves the need of all in this human family for now and for the future.
So that we can also at least reflect the concerns and the tragedy, frankly, of the victims.
Yes.
Nobody seems to be on the side of the victims anymore.
Shaka, you see, that is my point. I think Emira is right about it should be international and it is not, and that is a weakness that should be corrected. But in the meantime, what I like is, for a long time in history, Africans are killed with impunity. This is one of the first times where we've turned a page and we said, even if we cannot try all the perpetrators who kill people in Latin America, in the Middle East, we are starting to send the message that open season on African lives is over. Even if you are an African president, we can't try everybody, but we will try you, and let the message go out that killing Africans with impunity is over.